Okay, so let's continue our lecture. So first things first. So imagine we are trying to do an experiment in which we are going to mix an epoxy, just like a glue, with carbon fibers to make a composite. And in mixing them, initially they're liquid, and we have to cure them. And in curing them, there are two factors that can affect the properties. One is the temperature of the cure, which I show with T. The other one is the duration of the cure, or time of the cure, which I show with time. And after we do either of the, both of, after we control both of them, let's say we cure it for 2 hours at 160 degrees C, we get the strength, okay? And when we get a sample and we measure the strength of the sample, mechanical strength. And in doing so, by the way, we show the mechanical strength with sigma. So there are factors. Now, the factors in this experiment are the variables that we control. Either we keep them fixed or we change them. So for instance, the variables here are duration and time of the curing. The treatment is the combination of these experimental conditions that includes these factors: what temperature, what duration. The response is whatever we measure, which is the strength in this case. The experimental unit could be similar to the tensile testing machine that you saw in one of the labs that we can call MTS. And the operational unit, the unit that we use to measure the response, included, for instance, the DIC system. The DIC system allowed us not just to measure strength, but also, for instance, to measure the elastic modulus of the sample. So this is one set of experiment, but there are more other examples. For instance, in this case, the factors, they put it as the sugar, the egg, the ingredients. The amount of each we use is the treatment level, and the response is the cake you get at the end. Another way to put it is that temperature, duration, temperature at 150 degrees C, duration for 3 hours, and we get a sample and we measure the strength of the sample, which let's say is, just an example, 200 megapascal. Okay. So now, in designing the experiment, there are two things we pay attention to. The first one is the design structure, which is what is to be tested here. Okay, and so, for instance, in the example we made, we're testing the cure of the composite and the effect of that on strength. So the parameters are set. It's an epoxy, duration of the heating, temperature of the heating, and the other thing is the treatment structure. What type of, what range of temperatures, what durations of time are we going to use? Combination of these two gives us the design of the experiment, or experimental design, or design of experiments. Okay, and in designing the structure, there's a principle we pay attention to. There's lots of science behind this, but we're not going to get involved in all the science there. We're just going to rely on our instincts and common sense. is the concept of homogeneous blocks or blocking. It's a concept that came from agriculture, um, basically comparing the crops of that are, or putting crops that are of the same type or similar to each other in the same basket and evaluate the effect of certain parameters on those. For instance, if I ask you what is the effect of temperature on the strength, the first thing you do is, common sense tells us the temperature can have a different effect on metals than on composites. You can further break it down. You can differentiate uh, the effect of temperature on different types of composites as well. So this blocking is like a tree. It can branch out further and further. But you have to keep in mind, the further you branch it out, the more you're increasing the cost of the experiments because all of them have to be tested. Whereas if you very wisely put certain similar things in one block, by testing a sample of those, you can get good information about the rest of the samples in that block. Okay, so for instance, test metals, compare them with each other, test composites, compare them with each other. Okay. Now, there are two ways we can choose our variables. One is, and design our experiments. One is randomization. The other one is replication. Both of them have their merits and disadvantages. I'll explain randomization first in the subsequent video.